Hey you all, Farmer Jesse here. This little greenhouse has been such a trooper. We are supposed to have right out here in this blank space right here, that is supposed to be a 50 by 15 propagation house, but it's not yet. Anyway, that's not really what I wanted to talk about today. Today, in continuation of our Beginning Farmer series, I want to go into leasing versus owning versus the other options. I'm going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of them, and also just give my insight, what I think is the best way to go. But I also, as always with these videos, I ask anybody who is a farmer to go down below and leave your perspective. I don't have a monopoly on all the good advice or the good experience, so please add to the conversation. That way anybody who's getting into these videos and is like trying to become a farmer can go and read through the comments and see what everybody else put. So let's do it. Leasing, renting, whatever you want to call it. This doesn't necessarily have to involve money. It can be trading for vegetables. Sometimes it can be a work trade, labor trade. It can be lots of different things. It should always be put in writing, but it can be a lot of different things. We'll talk about that in a second. Of all the options for a beginning farmer, leasing to me is the most attractive. And I say this in retrospect, like we are buying our farm, right? We're paying a mortgage. I don't necessarily mind that. It took us about, 9 years to get to the point when we felt like we could really buy a piece of property. For some it may take less, for some it may take more. If I had to start all over again, I think that I would recommend leasing, or I would lease myself. And the reason for that is, one, farms aren't that hard to move. You can't move the soil, obviously, and that is a big part of it, but you can make everything modular. You can make your cooler modular, put it on a trailer. You can make your whole tool setup modular. We moved our farm 3 hours, and it took us maybe 4 moves with a trailer. We just bought a trailer, and that's how we did it. It was work. Moving always sucks. It's never gonna be fun, but it's not as hard as people maybe perceive it to be. Moving a farm, unless you're really setting up a giant operation with multiple tractors and a big old outbuilding, not that bad. It's not that bad. So the advantages of leasing are that maybe you're leasing a home and some ground, and then that way the owner of that place has to take care of the plumbing and all the, specific elements of taking care of a house. That can be a nice advantage. Yeah, it can often be really cheap. Like I said, you can trade vegetables for it. You can trade work for it. That doesn't necessarily mean work is cheaper. Rather, it'd be better to trade vegetables. Work can be expensive, but I do think that's a good idea. I think it's a good option. I think it's an affordable option. Cons, you're kind of at the mercy of the person leasing it to you. Now, everything should be put in writing. That doesn't mean it necessarily has to be legal, but if you have that option, if you have an option of making like a legal lease agreement, I would maybe do that. But what I would definitely do is go through and write every single element of the lease down and have both people initial it. And that way there's no confusion. You know exactly what they expect from you, and you know exactly whatever the reverse is. And that, I think, is so critical, because we had an experience where we went into a situation with family. We thought we were renting. They thought they were getting farm workers. And then at the end of the season, it completely blew up. And then finally we both realized, oh, we thought this was something different. That whole situation could have been avoided if we had gone through every single element of it and initialed it. So I'd highly recommend that. Like I said, I don't have all the experience on leasing. That's really our only time doing it that way. So if you do, please leave some advice or some experience below. Also, before we get into owning, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That helps us to reach more people, and like the video if you like the video. Anyway, moving on. Owning is so attractive, right? Like, we want to own our piece of land so that we can do whatever we want with it. Now, the problem with that, or one of the cons of owning property, is that what if you don't like the style of farming you chose? Or what if it's what if you don't really know what to look for? And we're going to talk about that in a later video, what to look for in land, even leased land. We're going to talk about all that. What to sacrifice and all the things that we kind of list ourselves as being top priority. But here's what I will say about owning is if you buy a piece of land and it ends up not being the perfect land for what you want, or you don't know exactly maybe what you're doing, it's going to be stressful. It's going to be it's a lot easier to buy land if you know what your systems are. And the beauty of renting is that you can kind of develop those systems and then know what you're looking for. If you've never rented before, you've never had a farm, that element is kind of subtracted, right? You won't know what exactly you need in order to run your operation more efficiently or more effectively, what your markets are. Like you may think you want to be a CSA farm, and then down the road you find out that you're more of a market garden. And that may change where you want to set up. And it's expensive. You have to think about all the things that go into it. It's not just when you buy a piece of property and you put your home on it, at least, you have to take care of the plumbing. You have to take care of the siding, the roof, all the stuff. It gets expensive. And a mortgage also comes with, you have to have 20% down a lot of times. Some people will go with 15% or maybe even 10%, I don't know. But 15% minimum, I would think. A lot of places ask for 20, and then you also, in some places, ask for 30, but then you also have closing costs and then any sort of setup you need. So buying property can be pretty expensive. We tend to think about farms as our own. We want our own farm, and I totally get that's where I came from, right? But we have to think of this like, like the people that originally set up farms in America. They had to work really hard, and it wasn't really the first generation of that farm that got to really enjoy it. So there is an element of sacrifice here. It doesn't have to be a huge sacrifice. You can have a small market garden, set up a fruit orchard, and when you retire, you'll be able to enjoy that, or your food forest, or whatever the permaculture thing is that you're into. All of that can come later, but finding a good system for making money and meeting your mortgage and all those things, or your lease agreement, I think that's the critical first step. So think about that before buying, or even before looking at land. It's so attractive. It's so fun. We love looking at property. I love looking at property. Think about that 2 or 3 years down the road. Get your farm set up, get your market developed, start thinking about all the little things that go into building a farm business, and then maybe start thinking about owning property if you want to, and you may never want to. Let's move on to the other options that exist. There are several, and I probably won't even remember them all. Farm successions. Michigan State University, I think it's Michigan State University, has done a lot of work on farm successions, and it is worth looking into all of the different ways in which a farm succession can go well and the ways it can go bad. And also finding farm successions, you can look, I think National Young Farmers Coalition has done a lot of work with this. If you have a farm succession opportunity, you can shout us out and just send me an email at no-tillgrowers@gmail.com, and we'll actually put it up on No Till Growers. So shoot us an email if you have a farm succession opportunity. But they can be great. What is the name of the farm? There was a Farmer to Farmer episode with Alex Hitt that's worth listening to. So Farmer to Farmer podcast, Alex Hitt is the name of the farmer. Listen to that because he's doing a farm succession, and it's really interesting how he sort of developed it. So it's worth looking into. Read about it, look for farm successions, but also make sure that everything is understood. It's almost like a lease. Like you have to make sure everything, in this case, I would make sure everything were legal so that you don't, 10 years down the road, the farmer cuts you out or something. Not that that's going to happen. Farmers are awesome, but good. So just think about that. Go through the list, check it off. Everybody knows what's going to happen, knows exactly what the deal is, and then that way there's no surprises down the road. There's also a lot of farm incubation programs. We kind of were part of one of these. Our mentors at Bug Tussle actually sold us a piece of property and gave us some reprieve to be able to start farming that property before we had to pay for it, which was super cool. So that's an option. You probably are going to have to know the farmer and work with them for a little while. So it's a bit like a farm succession, but maybe you buy a chunk of their property, or they let you slowly take over their business or whatever. So it's sort of like a farm succession, or they just incubate you. Fields of Farmers is a great book you should absolutely read by Joel Salatin. Check that out because it has a little bit of information about these sort of farm incubator programs and what the opportunities are there. So if you're working with a farmer now and they have a little extra land that maybe you could cut off a slice or even just lease a slice, and then you could work together. Use maybe their equipment, trade it for some labor, or maybe even pay them somehow, or just help them at farmer's market or whatever. yeah, there are opportunities there. Another option I think is a little bit neglected is just farm jobs. Just go to find, I talked a little bit about this in the first episode of the series, but finding a farm job, just going and talking to a successful farmer and who's got their system set up and all those sorts of things, and asking if they have any work. And then just working for them. And you can decide later on if you want to start your own farm, or maybe you can take that experience and manage a farm. Farm management is another option. So this is somewhere in between leasing and owning and farm succession and all these things. You're kind of helping somebody run their own farm, which I think is kind of a cool option. I know I have friends that are farm managers and they've taken over farm jobs, and for the most part it seems like it's working for them. And I think that's a cool opportunity. What else? I feel like I'm missing some things. Farm jobs at universities, farm jobs at different programs, probably nonprofits, all those things. There are opportunities out there in agriculture, and maybe increasingly so in the small farming sector. I feel as though I see more and more of our fellow kind of small farmers putting up, now hiring signs on their Instagram and stuff. So that's another thing. Follow lots of farmers so that way you can get in the loop on these now hiring things. Anything else? If there is anything else, make sure to leave it in the comments. So like I said, that way beginning farmers can go through here, look down to the comments, and read any added advice. You can also ask questions. Ask a question. I'll answer it, somebody else will answer it, maybe we'll answer it 2 different ways. That's great. Like I said, I don't have a monopoly on all the good advice, but I want to kind of try and help with the advice I do have, so like this video. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and also listen to the podcast. Also subscribe to the Patreon page if you really like what we're doing and you like these videos, you like the podcast. That money goes towards growing no-tillgrowers.com, the podcast, these videos, it goes to all that stuff. So think about that. All right, enough from me. You all have a great week. We'll see you probably next week if I have time. Spring is picking up, but I'm gonna keep doing these videos. So yeah, all right, thanks guys, bye.